What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Shop Talk Tuesday. So if you're new to this video series, what this is all about is a commentary based type thing where I pretty much talk the whole entire time about relevant things that are related to knife making or just creating in general. And then we go into what we have working in the background that's either going to be making it onto the channel or not. Then we go into a viewer's knife section where we talk about a viewer's knife and, I show it off to y'all and let y'all, tell me what y'all think about it and tell the maker of that knife what y'all think about it. But guys, the topic for the day actually came off of the Facebook page. I posted on there saying, hey guys, what would y'all like for me to talk about? And this was last week whenever the person who, suggested this, and I thought, okay, that's a really good topic. And I hit on it a long time ago. I'd say probably about, we're on like week 47 of this, so it would have been like week maybe 20, so it was a while back. I hit on it a little bit, but today we're going to focus on it, and that is going to be blade, edge geometry, handle geometry, ergonomics, things like that. What is helpful and what is hindering. So when it comes down to trying to figure out edge geometry, we're going to go with that first and then we'll go into handle. Now, edge geometry. It really just depends on what you plan on using the knife for. So you wouldn't take a chef's knife and take it out into the woods and cut down a whole bunch of trees. You would absolutely ruin that chef's knife. Even if it was an absolutely amazing chef's knife, if it was a designated chef's knife, the thickness and everything that they would typically do with a chef's knife, you would ruin it in the woods. Now, what I mean by chef's knife is the stuff that you typically see, well, chefs using. Now, it's things that have like an 1/8 inch thick spine and that do a distal taper from the ricasso all the way to the tip. So by the time you get to the tip, it is very thin but very sharp, and a lot of them have a very fine edge that you need to sharpen as you use them. If you start trying to cut a tree with one of those, you're going to start rolling that edge, because those knives are meant to have a very thin edge. They're meant to cut really clean and then be able to cut really thin pieces of, if you're cutting onions or celery or the tomato slice that everybody has to do so they can, read a book through the tomato. Now, again, it all depends on what you're going to be using it for. If you're actually going to take something out into the woods and use it as a chopper, so something that would be able to do everything that a knife does, but also take the place of something like a hatchet, like that, it's going to need to have a beefier edge, the same as a hatchet. A hatchet's going to have a beefier edge on it and have a less aggressive angle when it comes to the edge geometry. The whole point behind that is so that you can put it through a lot of abuse and it not really hurt the edge. You're not going to be rolling it as much because it's not as thin. Now, you can get like the fine line between the two, where you get a knife that has the right thickness to be able to do that nice thin slicing, but also is beefy enough to be able to chop at wood. And I like making knives like that. I like being right on the edge of chopper and slicer, because if you can get that nice heat treat and you get that real nice edge retention, you can do a lot with it. But a lot of people will go, okay, I'm going to make a camp knife that you can go and chop with, and then they're going to make it with 1/8 inch thick stock. It's not a very big knife. You're going to have a chance to take that and warp it whenever you go to chop into something because the steel is too thin. It's one of those things where you might go with 3/16, or you might go with something a little bit thicker. You might not have to go with all the way out to 1/4 of an inch like this stuff right here, that is super beefy. That's what I made the last chopper out of. But you can do something like this right here, the stuff that I use that is made out of the 5160. This is about 3/16 of an inch thick, and this is a good thickness to be able to make a lot of those bigger knives out of. But you got to think about all of those things whenever you set out to make the knife, because if someone says, hey, can you make me a, let's say they want you to make them a chopper or a camp knife. They want you to make them a big camp knife. And you go and get some 1/8 inch thick 1080 and make this knife. You could only make the edge so beefy. I mean, you can do something like a Scandi grind. That way the edge is all the way down towards the edge of the blade. And you don't go up as high with the bevels. So you can get a little bit, beefier edge geometry there, but then you're left with all of this flat steel with a little bitty edge on it. And, performance-wise, sometimes those are great, sometimes they're not so great. I don't prefer a Scandi grind, it's not really my thing. I like a little bit more bevel, but whenever you're actually thinking about that, you want to put a little bit of thought into the whole process to make sure that you're making the right edge geometry for the right knife. For me personally, I don't do a lot of angle measuring or focusing so much on this is a 15 degree, this is an 85 degree, this is a 20 degree. I don't focus that much on that. I do a lot of it based on what I've seen in the past work and how those bevels have been. I've been collecting knives for a very long time, and I've used an absolute insane amount of knives to do so many different things. So I've taken all of the edge geometries and ergonomics throughout the years of me doing this, which, it's been over 20 years of me messing with knives, and I've put that into everything that I make. So I know what is comfortable as a slicer and what makes sense with the way that the bevels are and how high they come up, and what knives I want a 90-degree spine on, what knives I want the bevels to come all the way up on, what knives I would want to do a Scandi grind on, or what knives are going to be best for chopping into wood with their edge geometry based on things that I've seen work and not work in the past. Because I've had ones that have had catastrophic failures and things like that, and I've learned from that throughout the time of me using them. So it's really just you trying to figure out, whenever you make a knife, what the usefulness of that knife is going to be. We have a lot of people who are just getting into knife making. They'll make a knife and then they'll sell the knife instantly, and they haven't had the chance to actually use the knife to figure out what the edge retention is for that particular blade geometry. They haven't seen what that could do with different things because they're afraid that they're going to damage the knife before it gets sold. You need to make plenty of knives and use them before you even sell your first knife, because you need to know what your heat treat on 1080 does edge retention wise. You need to know what your heat treat on 5160, your heat treat on 80 CRV2, your heat treat on 5160. I think I've actually said that one. You know what I mean? You need to make sure that you know exactly what your edge geometry and your heat treat and everything is going to do with that particular style of knife that you're making. Don't just make a knife and say, it's a hunting knife. Here you go. Go hunt with that. Don't do that. Make a knife, use the knife for its intended purposes, and then if it's successful, make a few more, sell it, or sell that one. Just make sure that before you go try and selling something as a particular thing, that it's actually useful for that. So you'll get a lot of experience with the edge geometries based on what you actually do. But again, it's all about what the intended purpose is and then actually trying it out for that. I did a lot of that to figure out where I'm at now. There you go. Now when it comes to handle ergonomics, y'all have heard me talk a lot about this. I focus on the ergonomics of handles in every single knife build that I do. I always tell y'all, put it in your hand as you're using, or as you're shaping it and doing that, so that you know exactly how it's going to feel and the hot spots on your hands as you're using it. Because if you're going to make a chopper, that bad boy needs to be very comfortable. You know, they do a lot of ergonomics when it comes to hatchets and things like that to make sure that as you're swinging this, that it's comfortable over and over and over again. So they've got all these different shapes right here, and you'll see a lot of people make their choppers basically with handles like this that have the bigger end, that are tapered to be able to easily like index in your hand real well, so that whenever you go to swing, it doesn't kick out to the side or anything like that, or it doesn't feel comfortable swinging this way sideways or this way. Your hand automatically indexes to the right direction whenever you start swinging through it. So there's a lot to think about whenever you're actually designing a knife handle. You'll have a lot of people do the broomstick style handle. So they'll go through and they'll start doing their handle, and let's see here. We'll take this knife right here. So this one, they'll take it and they'll put the scales on either side, and then they'll just 45 each. So 45 here, 45 here, 45 here, 45 here. And what ends up happening is the handle is super wide, and it just kind of comes around and almost looks like a broomstick whenever you're just looking at it straight on here. It looks almost like a cylinder that just happens to be contoured this way. And that doesn't really lend itself to many things. Whenever you hold a knife like that, you can hold it like this, and it feels exactly the same as if you were holding it like this. So if you had your eyes closed, you wouldn't know really which way the edge is going whenever you're holding it. You would just have to assume that you knew which way it was going. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that something indexes itself so that whenever you're holding it, this is the way that feels most comfortable. Any other way feels awkward, because you want it to automatically index to the cutting edge so that you can just grab it, slice with it. That's how you want to think through what you're going to do. That's why whenever I first started making knives, I made almost all of them with finger choils. You can look at a ton of these knives that are back here, and it's like finger choil, finger choil, finger choil, finger choil, finger choil, finger choil, finger choil. Guess what? Finger choil, finger choil, finger choil. There's a lot of them. I designed almost all the knives that way because to me it made sense whenever I first started actually doing these things, so that I knew exactly that it was going to index where it needed to index. Now, I haven't been making a lot of knives lately that haven't had finger choils. I've just been focusing on the actual handle shape and ergonomics of it. So again, whenever you're making a handle on a knife, you want to make sure that you're putting it in your hand over and over and over again. And as soon as it gets to the point to where whenever you grab that knife, the blade automatically points the way the blade's supposed to point, you're successful. Go ahead, start hand sanding and buffing it, because you don't need to go much further than that. As soon as it starts feeling to that comfortable point, you might refine a little bit of it with some hand sanding, but you don't really need to focus anymore on belt grinders or rasps or anything like that. You just want to go ahead, start hand sanding, refining it a little bit. But as soon as you get it to index in that right spot, you know it's good. If it's not indexing that way, if whenever you're holding it, like I said, it feels just as comfortable this way as it does this way, that means the ergonomics are off. So think about that whenever you're starting to design your handle. Doesn't matter whether you're doing a Coke bottle shape or you're just doing a regular handle like this right here. Doesn't matter. Just make sure that whenever you're holding it, this is the way it feels comfortable. If I hold this knife like this, it's awkward. If I hold it like this, it's comfortable. So it's all about how you contour everything whenever you're holding it. Good old Sony a5100 and its overheating issues. It just overheated on me, turned off, so we're going to finish what we were saying. Now, even on a knife that is this size, that's small, like a 3-finger knife, it still automatically indexes right where I want it to index, because I focused on the contouring and the ergonomics of the handle to make it immediately go to this. Whenever I pick it up, it's automatically blade pointing towards where I'm going to cut, and that's what you want to focus on. I know it's real easy to just do that 45-degree angle or start sanding it like a broomstick and calling it good, but don't do that. You know, take the time, focus on the handle, because that is what you hold the whole entire time you're using a knife. The edge retention is a big deal, but a great edge on a horrible handle is useless. I'm gonna repeat that. A great edge on a horrible handle is useless, because nobody will pick up that knife and try and actually do anything with it. Because if it hurts your hand, you're going to figure out something else to use. So think about that stuff. Guys, let's go ahead. Let's jump into what we have working that's going to be, you know, working its way into the videos. Now, of course, got a little sneak peek of this. Watch out. So that's turning out pretty good. I think that the video is going to be helpful whenever we actually release that. But that's the San Mai build. We've got that going on. We've got a few of the builds that we're going to have coming up where we're either going to be doing the forged kukri, or we're going to be working on the next San Mai build that we're going to be doing, which is going to be pretty cool. It's going to be 80 CRV2 core, 15N20, and then 1080 on the outside. So that's the next San Mai build. Now, when it comes to the viewer's knife section, these pictures were actually taken off of the Facebook page, so the TRE Workshop Facebook page. This knife is by Marcos, and I'll put his name whenever we actually do the cutaway. But absolutely beautiful knife, and this was his first Damascus, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to jump into that part and talk about it. So let's do the cutaway now. So for one, Marco, I just want to say, for your first Damascus knife, this thing is absolutely awesome. I love the profile of this knife. This is just a good EDC knife, and that Damascus turned out absolutely fantastic. Man, I'm hoping that the first time I actually make full-blown Damascus or layered steel, that it turns out like this. But guys, y'all tell him what y'all think about this knife. I like the profile, I like the wood, I like the pins, and I think that this is just absolutely beautiful. Now, Marcos, I want to thank you for, you know, posting that on the Facebook page. I thought that was absolutely awesome. And I mean, for your first go at Damascus, wow, that thing turned out awesome. And like I said, I'm hoping that whenever I make my first one, that it turns out that well. So again, great profile. Guys, I know that Marcos would love to hear what you thought about his knife in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet, go check out the TRE Workshop Facebook page. We got about 600 members on there, and it's not just me posting things that are happening with the channel, which I do post pretty often on there, so y'all can see what's going on. But we have a lot of people that are on there. They use it more as a forum than they do just following what I do. So there's other people, other knife makers that are just getting into knife making or have been making knives for a long time, and they all talk on there. So go check that out. Guys, that is pretty much the end of this one. If y'all would, give this video a thumbs up, share this video or one of my other videos. Guys, if you haven't yet, y'all should go in that bottom corner right there, hit that little subscribe button so you get notified of the stuff that we have that's coming up. Guys, thank y'all for coming by. Thank y'all for spending the time with me. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all next time.